Did you know that Sonic the Hedgehog once appeared in an Aiden Ross live stream? So yes, Aiden Ross, he is one of the most controversial and polarizing streamers of all time. Not to be outdone by the equally controversial and polarizing Sonic the Hedgehog. But did you know that Sonic and Aiden's paths have crossed on a live stream before? So Jake Future is a streamer that Aiden Ross actually helped sign and get a deal with Kick. He has appeared on several Aiden Ross streams, and if you look behind Jake, what do you see? You see a poster of none other than Sonic the Hedgehog. So not only has Sonic been on a stream with Aiden Ross, if you look to the left of him, he's also been on a stream with Jake Paul before. Pretty cool stuff, but let's move on to the next fact. Next up, did you know that Snoop Dogg is apparently a Sonic the Hedgehog fan? Snoop Dogg is one of the most iconic hip-hop artists of all time, and apparently he's a fan of one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. If you look at this tweet from Ben Schwartz, who is the voice actor for Sonic the Hedgehog in the movies, he says this: "No one was gonna tell me that Snoop Dogg is out here rocking a Sonic the Hedgehog chain. Incredible." And if you look right here, Snoop is rocking a Sonic chain. I gotta say, I wish I could have one of these. Also, it looks like on Instagram Live, he also showed off this same Sonic chain. That thing is icy as hell, probably cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Since we're talking about Snoop Dogg, let's move on to the next fact that pertains to the Archie Sonic comics and a reference that they made to Snoop Dogg. So Sleuth Doggy Dog is a character that appears in the Sonic the Hedgehog comic series and its spin-offs published by Archie Comics. He was originally a member of the Robotropolis spy network, providing information to various freedom fighter groups from inside Robotropolis. However, Sleuth was swayed to Robotnik's side for promises of wealth and personal power, which led him to lead an unsuccessful coup against Princess Sally Acorn, who was Sonic's girlfriend in the comics. And then he was incarcerated in the Devil's Island Gulag prison. Make no mistake, Sleuth's name is a reference to hip-hop artist Snoop Dogg, and note that the words Snoop and Sleuth both mean to investigate. So clearly a play on words and a very interesting fact. Let's move on to the next one. Here's the next fact. Sonic had an appearance in the movie called Ready Player One. It's really hard to see, but in the scene that I just showed you, for a brief second, if you look in the corner, you will actually see Sonic the Hedgehog. So the movie is about a virtual reality that helps people escape, but this isn't even the craziest part of this franchise. The film is based off of the 2011 book called Ready Player One, and after the movie in 2018, they released a follow-up novel called Ready Player Two in 2020. But the craziest thing about the novel Ready Player Two is that it actually makes a reference to Sonic.exe. In the book, it says Mobius Prime was another Oasis world created solely by Kira Morrow as a tribute to her favorite video game character, Sonic the Hedgehog. The planet was a recreation of the fictional future Earth where most of Sonic's adventures took place, and it featured reproductions of all different levels featured in the early 2D and 3D Sonic games, along with environments and characters from the cartoons and comic books based off of them. Here's a quote from the book. It says, "Anorak just went Sonic.exe on us. This is so bad." What's even worse is that Steven Spielberg recently confirmed that Ready Player 2 is currently in development, which means it's possible, if it completely follows the book, there could be a reference to Sonic.exe in a movie. That remains to be seen, but it is definitely mentioned in the book, so it looks like the legend of Sonic.exe rages on. Let's move on to the next fact. Here's the next fact. Sonic had an appearance in a film called Master Q Incredible Pet Detective, which released in 2003. In one of the scenes, for a brief moment, you will actually see Sonic. More specifically, you will see Sonic Advance 2 artwork. If you look at the calendar over to the left right here, you can see artwork of Sonic the Hedgehog, Cream the Rabbit, Knuckles, and Tails, all using the Sonic Advance 2 artwork. Let's move on to the next fact. Here's the next fact. There have been several occasions where, by error or whatever, there has been tan legs for Sonic the Hedgehog. The first of which being in Sega Gaga, which was a game for the Dreamcast, which actually features Sonic in it. You actually take the role of a struggling video game company called Sega, and it's a turn-based RPG game where you try to restore Sega's market share. In one of the cutscenes, for a brief second, you'll actually see that Sonic has tan legs. I gotta say, this look is definitely not it. Also, at the end of Knuckles Chaotix, you will see that Sonic is featured at the end with tan legs again. Knuckles Chaotix was a game that was widely regarded as not good, which released back in the day for the Sega 32X. It was a standalone Knuckles spin-off game which also featured the Chaotix, where you have this weird ring mechanic which allows you to control two separate characters. Introduce Mighty, Vector, Espio. But in the end credit scene, you will see Sonic and Tails, and you will see those cursed tan legs. Whoever did this to Sonic made a huge mistake because this looks terrible. Another game where the tan legs also appears is in Sonic Pocket Adventure, which is one of those games which is actually surprisingly one of the highest rated Sonic games by IGN ever. They gave it a 10 out of 10. You know what isn't a 10 out of 10? In one of the menus of the game, you will see that Sonic once again mistakenly does not have his blue legs and has tan legs. This looks absolutely terrible. Whoever's responsible for this belongs in prison. I don't know how this keeps happening to him. But to relate all this back to the pop culture, TV, and entertainment theme, there was also a time when Sonic had tan legs in a Frosted Flakes commercial. There are several parts within the TV commercial where Sonic erroneously has the tan legs, and once again, it just never looks good. I don't know if this was a mistake, but it needs to stop. Stop giving Sonic tan legs. Also, in some of the old school Sonic comics, you will also see Sonic with tan legs as well, and every single time it just gets worse and worse. I'm taking this off the screen. Let's move on to the next one. Here's the next fact. Kim Kardashian threw a Sonic Movie 2 themed party for her kids. Prior to the release of Sonic Movie 2, Kim Kardashian was able to see the movie early with her kids and throw a Sonic 2 themed party. The party was full of Sonic Movie 2 plushes, merchandise, they had a little bouncy castle, and of course, like I said earlier, they had a private screening of the movie early. All the merch, and they get to see the movie early. Man, I hope I get that when Sonic Movie 3 comes out. I don't know. This probably comes as no surprise because apparently her son is a huge fan of Sonic, according to her ex-husband Kanye West.
He's my son's favorite character, Sonic.
Oh, word?
Yeah. It's Jim Carrey's character.
Yeah.
Maybe even the craziest part of that clip right there, the person who was filming Kanye was actually Kid Cudi, and Kid Cudi is going to be starring in the brand new Knuckles TV series, so it's crazy how things come full circle. Who would have guessed that they were Sonic fans? Well, let's move on to the next fact. Here's the next fact. The canceled Sonic X-Treme game also had a novel to go along with it, and it was quite interesting. So yes, Sonic X-Treme was a canceled game for the Sega Saturn, which was supposed to be Sonic's true debut as a 3D platformer. However, this game was extremely weird, and it probably was going to be a massive failure when you consider some of the other 3D titles that were being produced at the time, such as Super Mario 64. So Sonic X-Treme was eventually canceled. So to celebrate the release of the game, a book called Sonic X-Treme was actually published, and he has a very weird neon look. The plot synopsis was pretty simple. It was about Bunny Rabbit, who was in danger. It said the SWAT bots have captured Bunny. The only way Sonic can save her is to beat the evil Dr. Robotnik in an extreme sports contest. Sonic knows he's better than Robotnik at bungee jumping, rock climbing, and surfing, but Robotnik has dirty tricks up his sleeve. Can Sonic free Bunny, or will Robotnik crush the freedom fighters forever? So while the video game Sonic X-Treme was canceled, the book was actually released, and it actually featured some really cool artwork. As you can see right here, Sonic is wearing a uniform that closely resembles the Orlando Magic's uniforms back in 1996, and Sonic was also wearing the exact same number that Shaquille O'Neal, Hall of Fame NBA center, wore when he was with the Orlando Magic as well. So this outfit was clearly inspired by Shaq. So yeah, Sonic X-Treme was canceled probably for good reasons, but you probably didn't know about the Sonic X-Treme book. Very cool references. Let's move on to the next one. Here's the next fact. This is also relating to pop culture as well. Sonic made an appearance in the movie called 13 Lives, which is a 2022 biographical survival film. Specifically, they're playing Sonic Mania, one of the greatest Sonic games of all time. If you look at this image from the film right here, one of the characters in the movie is playing Sonic Mania on an Xbox One. Clearly, whoever this fictional character is obviously had great taste in Sonic games. Well, let's move on to the next fact. Here's the next fact. Drake has featured Sonic the Hedgehog on his Instagram story before. This actually happened a couple of months ago, and Drake posted this picture to his Instagram story. This wouldn't be the first time that Drake and Sonic have crossed paths before, though. Drake has actually sampled Sonic the Hedgehog in his 2017 album, or actually he calls it a playlist, More Life. The specific song he did was KMT, which stands for Kissing My Teeth, and he sampled His World. And here's how he did it.
Okay.
Here's the next fact. Sonic has appeared multiple times in The Simpsons. So the first thing right here, this is actually a reference to a previous video we did. This is in The Simpsons video game. You see like a washed up pathetic parody of Sonic, but this is actually not what we're talking about. If you want to see that other video, it will be linked in the end screen though. There's been a couple references to Sonic in The Simpsons, but most notably, there's one right here that says Sonic the Hedgehog says wait until marriage, where it looks like he is proposing to Amy Rose and a ring pops out of the box. I gotta say, this is definitely a much better parody than the video game version of Sonic. There's also another Simpsons Sonic reference in a 1995 episode where Bart is trying to steal a video game, and you have people like Mario, Luigi, Donkey Kong, and this other version of Sonic trying to justify him doing that. Simpsons could never stick to one Sonic design, but this one does look kind of cool. And also in one of the episodes, there is a reference to movie Sonic. As you can see, they parody the ugly Sonic on the left, which is a reference to the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie trailer where he looked absolutely disgusting. And on the right, there's the redesign, which honestly doesn't even look that much better in this image. But this was obviously a reference to the internet absolutely losing it when they they saw the ugly version of Sonic, and rightfully so. But let's move on to the next reference. Here's the next fact. Sonic appeared as a trophy in the Formula 1 European Grand Prix. So in 1993, this event was sponsored by Sega. There was tons of Sega logos, there was a bunch of advertisements, but most notably, the trophy at the end, or at least like a prop trophy, was a Sonic the Hedgehog trophy. As you can see, there was a bunch of Sonic signs and then a bunch of people wearing Sonic costumes. This has to be one of the most interesting Sonic facts yet. This right here is probably one of the most famous pop culture references for Sonic, but several times in the Breaking Bad series, Sonic has made an appearance. In one of the episodes in season 4 in Breaking Bad, you'll actually see one of the characters playing Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing with Sonic on the top and Amy on the bottom, and they're playing split-screen racing. In another scene, the Sonic 06 multiplayer, this is probably the most famous reference right here, is also being played by Jesse Pinkman. I don't know about you guys, but I think he has pretty good taste in Sonic games. I think we need more Sonic 06 on TV as opposed to less. Here's another one of the less obscure cameos where Sonic appears in pop culture, media, and film is Wreck-It Ralph. In the film, you'll see characters from several different video game franchises, one of which you also see Dr. Eggman from the Sonic franchise. But not only is Sonic in the film, he also has voice acting lines from his in-game voice actor Roger Craig Smith. In one of the credits of the movies, there's a 2D animated sequence, and in the second Wreck-It Ralph film, there's also more appearances by him as well as another small monologue where he explains to Ralph what Wi-Fi is. So he's pretty smart and pretty technologically advanced, but also this animation and model looks actually really good.